didn't even get. It wasn't even close to getting murdered. We freaking won going away.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of feel like it all works itself out. You for years in college football, the third best SEC team could have won the Big 12. Like, yeah, this idea that it's going to be perfectly linear and the best teams. Well, there's upsets in sports all the time. So it doesn't bother me. I think if a team is a 9-8 team and they end up winning a division against a 13-5 team, well, the 13-5 team, if they're legit, will go on the road and win.
Look at last year. The Rams did not have as good of a record as Minnesota, and they got to host the game. I have no problem with that. When you go 7-9, which now would be 8-9, I think we'd probably be surprised if we ever see a 7-10 team win a division. But if you go 8-9, I don't think you should get a playoff game. I'm okay. Division winner, you get.
How about you get a playoff game because you win your division? You don't get a home playoff game.
Because think of what Seattle. I mean, it's one of the loudest places in the league at the time. The Marshawn Lynch run. I mean, that's the disadvantage of the Saints, who are the defending Super Bowl champions.
In a dome team.
That's tough. That's outdoors in the weather. I mean, a huge advantage for the Saints is they play in a dome. And so you got to go out to a team that won 7-9. The NFC West has come a long way, Colin. That division used to be pretty bad when Pete Carroll first got there.
Yeah, you know what it does feel like? That the northern divisions right now are really powerful. And once again, the AFC South and the NFC South. And it feels like it's been a long, decade-long stretch that the AFC and NFC South, maybe it's because the SEC is so watched and drives so much revenue. I don't know what it is, but I do feel like the southern divisions in the NFL are really weak.
Well, I think Peyton and Luck, they kind of left Indy, and Matt Ryan got old fast. I mean, they had a couple. Drew Brees, I saw an article the other day. His shoulder doesn't even work. So, I mean, they had a couple quarterbacks, both those two divisions, and now they do not. And they are not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to highlight this. I'm watching this and I'm thinking in my back of my mind, literally right now, where I'm like, should I just stop this clip? Like, does this matter for anything? And I always try to figure out the purpose. And I never like to just post clips just for the sake of it, right? I like something to kind of actually matter and have a purpose. But not the easiest thing to do when it's June. But I do enjoy talking about the Raiders, and I was trying to think about it, what's the take here, because we can talk about reseeding and all of that, and I don't care to have that conversation right now personally. But watching Pete Carroll have that conversation really stood out to me with his level of experience and his level of confidence and mastery over not only football, but the NFL. Whereas when you're dealing with some of these other coaches, whether they're younger or even experienced, but still young, it's just different. And watching something like this, where they're not even necessarily talking specifically about the Raiders or what they're going to be able to do, or even anything practically from a football perspective, I just see Pete Carroll as someone who has such an insane level of depth, of true high level success, not only in football, but obviously in the NFL. And now he's the coach for the Raiders. And just how much that's going to benefit them. And I've talked a lot about the experience of Pete Carroll and balancing that out with a Chip Kelly on offensively, and kind of how there's the benefits of having an older defensive coach and a younger offensive coach, kind of like that balance of what you need, because offenses are the creativity and a lot more, they seemingly are changing every day with different styles of quarterbacks and what you can do, and defenses are a little bit more, I don't want to say straightforward because they have their own evolution, but it just seems different from my viewpoint. And I think the levels of successes of some of these coaches would prove that to be the case. And when I just see someone like a Pete Carroll now at the head of the Raiders, it just makes me realize just how much of a home run of a hire it really was, and just the stabilizing force that Pete Carroll is going to have with this Raiders team. And I just made a take talking about something not exactly the same, but with regards to the Chicago Bears. And Colin asked, would a successful season for the Bears be 10-7? And John Middlecoff was like, well, yeah, of course. Are you kidding me? Like, this team has been so bad for so many years, et cetera, et cetera. And it really put me on a whole take talking about kind of, what can you expect from teams in the NFL, the level of success, how quickly you can get there, what should expectations be for various teams and whatnot. And for me, it's just the Raiders have been a team that have just been, and it's hard to admit, but like they've just been falling, right? Like even in moments when they've had some success, had some energy, like it's just this feeling that they're just constantly kind of falling. And my takeaway from this coming season will be like, that's over. I don't know if you're now going to be able to reverse and spring back to the top and now like no longer falling, but I do believe that at the very least you're going to stop falling. And you then get to build off of that, because it's so hard to build a parachute when you're already falling out of the plane. Okay, when you're already in the air, it's really hard to do that. But if you could just pause, if you could just freeze yourself, it's a lot easier to do that. And that's what I feel as though where the Raiders will be able to be. And it's so much easier to do, again, when you you obviously need the talent, but when you have the experience, when you have leadership there. And sometimes you can have leadership there, but you just have no talent. And then it's just like, what are we going to do here? Or you have the talent, but you have no leadership. And I think that's why the Raiders were so smart, because they were like, we want a Geno Smith. We want a Pete Carroll. We're going to go out and get a weapon or two, a big weapon, a beast of a weapon. We're going to go out and get an OC who we feel understands, what needs to happen in the, in the NFL from an offensive perspective. Not someone who's just like, oh, Pete Carroll knows and that's been his guy for years. It's like, no. We're gonna look for someone who we think is smart, at the top of his game, not just like a Bill Belichick buddy, like, oh, I've had lots of success with this guy for years. Like, I'm gonna bring him with me now. And it's like, no. We're gonna be a little different. And I just think that they continue to make really smart decisions. And I can see it even in a clip that has nothing to do with the Raiders, quite frankly. And to me, that gives me even more belief and even more confidence in what they're going to be able to do this year. So I was on the fence truly about like stopping the clip or not. Just like, this, I saw the Raiders logo, I saw Pete Carroll, and I'm like, all right, let's talk about this. What are they going to talk about? And then I thought maybe at the very end, at least we'll talk more about the Raiders. But they didn't. And I was just like, all right, maybe I'll just end it, and just delete it. This doesn't mean anything. But then I was like, no, I see the take in this. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Las Vegas Raiders and Pete Carroll? And his level of experience and how it's going to impact the Raiders now. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.